Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. We're going to just get started in a couple of minutes. There's a lot of people still joining at the moment. This is a very, very busy webinar with the number of people that we have, which is always really exciting. And, I'm looking forward to presenting this for you. Just while we're getting started, so you can get familiar with everything in Zoom, there is a chat there. I'd love to hear where you're dialing in from, and also that if the sound is working okay. So yeah, please let me know where you're sort of signing in from here. So it's fantastic to see because we have many hundreds of people signed in from all over the world here. So yeah, I can see that coming in. So yeah, Poland and Helsinki and Abu Dhabi and Israel, Belfast. Yeah, see, this is fantastic. This is what I love. It is always great presenting this. Yeah, hi Sweden, hi Oxford, hi South Africa. So yeah, brilliant. So it's great to see, and also letting me know the sound is okay. So yeah, what we'll do, we will really sort of just get started with some of the setting up, and people are still joining. So we'll sort of work through with that. So in this webinar here, we're going to go through sort of our interior design sort of uses, really. So real life uses of how interior designers use SketchUp. And we're going to look at real examples, some of the tools that will really help with interior design using SketchUp. We'll focus on some of the details, so we'll have a look through. Now, in the webinar, the session will be recorded and it will be shared afterwards as well. You will be kept on mute during the webinar for obvious reasons. We're at sort of a few hundred people now, so we'll go there. If you have any questions, if you rather than using the chat, there is a questions and answers section in Zoom as well. So please use the question and answer session for that, because the questions will get recorded and we'll be able to see them, whereas the chat doesn't get recorded at the end. And, of course, a big thank you for joining us on this webinar. So, it really sort of makes it worthwhile for us to sort of be able to help. And, the feedback that we have from people and questions that we have really help design these webinars as well. And also a massive, thank you to our partners, SketchUp partners and SketchUp resellers. They are a real source of information for you all, and they can answer questions, help with the licenses, and also these sort of use cases. So it's a massive thank you. They're so valuable, sort of for yourselves and for us as well. So what we're going to do in this, I'll give you an introduction, a little bit about myself. Then we'll talk through some of the sort of real world interior design workflows, sort of talking about the examples and sort of how it really helps as we go through. And then we'll look at some of the tools that support the workflow. And then, time allowing, we'll get into SketchUp and I'll show some of those tools in a little more detail. And hopefully questions at the end. We always want to make sure there's opportunity there as well. So a little bit about myself. So my name is Martin Cox. I'm a customer success manager for partnerships at Trimble SketchUp. And I've spent sort of 20 years working in customer success. This has included working with SketchUp for quite a long time. So I became a certified SketchUp trainer in 2010. And I've been working sort of with Trimble SketchUp for 4 years. And I used to work on our sort of direct customer success team, working with our largest customers. But now I work with our partners and sort of help really sort of enable them to help you guys really get the most out of SketchUp and understand, how SketchUp can work. So what we're going to do, sort of in this session, we'll have a look at, some of the SketchUp tools that we'll be speaking about during this webinar. It's also worth mentioning, I'm going to be talking about different versions of SketchUp subscriptions. Now, there are different levels of SketchUp subscriptions. We have SketchUp Pro, we have SketchUp Pro Scan, Pro Advanced, and Studio. And hopefully I'll be able to sort of make it clear the tools that are in these different versions. But for any information about any of the SketchUp versions we discuss, if you contact your reseller, they'll be happy to go through details. So, questions there, sort of through them. But within sort of our workflow that we have in SketchUp Studio, it's importing other information. We know that people with SketchUp are using other tools as well. So working with the Revit importer, Scan Essentials that are in sort of some of the higher versions of SketchUp, but also our fundamental SketchUp desktop software as well that has been around for sort of 20 years. SketchUp for iPad. Now this is something that I'm excited to show as well. It's been around for a couple of years, but people are still sort of finding the power of this. And then we'll look at some of those other tools that how we can, excuse me, how we can model our interior space, how we can fit out that space. So using 3D Warehouse, using some of the new tools that we have, so Diffusion AI, and presenting in iPad, collaborating in Trimble Connect, realistic rendering in V-Ray, and sort of layout documentation. So we've got a lot we're going to go through in this session. But that's, always the fun part of these webinars. Now, the first section, these are all real life examples of companies and people that have used SketchUp to develop interior spaces. Now, developing interior spaces, there are different things you need to consider. If it's for a home, there can be a lot of, passion and sort of emotions involved in developing interior spaces in the home. Now, the great thing about using a 3D model is you can present the ideas to all members of the family, including children. So everybody can see the design concept that they're looking at. You're not showing 2D drawings that people don't always understand. So you can sample your 3D materials, real life materials, include them in your model, and show exactly how things are going to look, whether it's in SketchUp, whether it's in a photorealistic render, but you can go through it. And what this will do is it will prevent any confusion because not everybody understands 2D drawings. A very quick example is my next door neighbor. They were actually getting an extension built, and they were they said, we don't understand the 2D drawings. I quickly modeled it for them in SketchUp. And the first thing they said is, what's that window doing there? So straight away, they were able to go back to the builder and say, no, that's not what we meant. So it immediately sort of prompted, questions there to sort of be answered. But by showing the colors, working with your customers, you can take them through their new home. You can show them the models, the colors, the designs, the lighting, and really get that emotion and belief and love into their model. So, here's some sort of residential designs and sort of room designs and renders that we have. Now, kitchen designs. And kitchen designs is a really popular sort of process within SketchUp, because when you're creating kitchens, you can create libraries of standard components such as cabinet carcasses, doors and handles. So, you can quickly switch in and out of different models, different handles, different doors, and show the different processes that you have as you go through and say, well, actually, would you prefer this handle or would you prefer this handle? Because when it's designing sort of kitchens, yes, we have the emotion we discussed previously, But there's also an element around functionality within kitchens. So, when people are serious about sort of in their kitchens, working in their kitchens, there are key topics such as storage, surface space, and they can sort of talk through that and say, actually, I'd like this space bigger because that's where I do my preparation. Can we move the sink over here? It starts getting more into that sort of functionality working in that process within a kitchen. So, these examples here from Sarah Amos Interiors. So, she's sort of working with her customers and again, showing those designs and getting sort of that information there. Now, also, when it comes to sort of other spaces, small spaces can be hard to visualize. And, it's one of those things that when you have these small spaces, it really can be sort of great to show people there. Because, these types of small details can make a real difference when presenting to a customer. And, looking into these models here, we can show a small space, being built using animations to open a drawer to say, okay, this is where your belts are going to be stored, your sunglasses, your watches. And again, it's these type of small details that can really make a difference to presenting to a potential customer. So it's a great option there, when we're sort of looking as we go through. So the animation that, we've created here, we can sort of really see, again, sending that to a customer, sending that animation, they can then believe in that design. So, it's a small space here. Now, I saw a question actually just come in. I know I normally stick with questions at the end, but I saw this question come in because actually it's a really good sort of time for that. So, the question is from Sarah around, can SketchUp handle complex interior spaces, restaurant or bar interiors? Absolutely. So this is an area that, we have sort of, again, a lot of markets in. We have a lot of stored, excuse me, I'm hoping my voice will stay with me throughout this session. We have restaurant design, we have store design, we have shop design, and this is ranging from sort of small to sort of large. We actually have sort of DIY stores, so we know how large they are. But these spaces absolutely can be sort of worked in SketchUp as well. And in this instance, we're showing an example here of a renovation. So an old building that has been converted into a coffee shop. And showing existing space being transformed really helps because it can create conversations as we go through and also helps visualize special details. Like if we look at the top right image there, that small arch that's an existing detail within your space. So that, you can say, actually, if we like this, we can make this a feature. It can sort of really help, again, with that sort of visualization. Now, also, working with complicated spaces. So this is sort of conversion of a church. And this particular sort of example, what they did in here is they had the interior of a church. And if I go to the next image here, they used a point cloud scan. So they're using Scan Essentials, which is in sort of Pro Scan or SketchUp Studio or SketchUp Pro Advanced Pro. And they scanned this very complicated interior space, and then they were able to fit it out, with these examples here to sort of say, okay, we want to put a climbing wall in this space. Now, looking at the ceiling here, it's a really complicated ceiling, and you imagine trying to measure that. It's not going to be impossible, but measuring that is going to be very difficult. So actually being able to scan that using a 3D point cloud, working with that in SketchUp means that you actually have that space correctly in SketchUp, and you can work with it, and you can then use it for, detecting conflicts, detecting sort of information there. So, the sort of, as we go through, like I said, they built this climbing wall in this particular space, but I just can't imagine having to measure that space. But working with it with a 3D point cloud in SketchUp, it does make it so much easier. Now, again, questions come in. How does SketchUp Scan actually work? So, Scan Essentials, we're going to be talking about that in a little more detail. So, we'll absolutely make sure we go through that. Because understanding, the process of a point cloud is a fantastic way of sort of working with SketchUp. But then we speak about retail design as well. So, retail design, we have a large number of customers in SketchUp in retail design that, again, small stores, huge stores, pop-up stores, and it's a real sort of big process there because there's a number of elements that you can take and you have to consider, particularly in retail design. We can use reporting so they can see how much stock can be in the store as we go through, and I'll show an example of this. We can sort of generate those designs, the marketing materials, the display stands for the processes there. But they also need to consider things like accessibility, visual cues for people, so how they see things as they go sort of through there. And it's really important to be able to show that. And again, another question. Is the bottom left image with the lady in orange trousers created in SketchUp? Yes, that is a V-Ray render. So photorealistic render of a SketchUp model. And again, we'll talk about V-Ray as well as we go through. So it's good. The questions are asking what we're going to be showing. So hopefully we'll go in the right direction. Now, what we're going to see a lot in this webinar is this loft space. Now, this is a real life project. It's been followed by a number of publications. And we're going to sort of look in this presentation at how the space was captured, some of the tools that help the decisions along the way. So this is a photo of the loft space. This one isn't a render, but we'll see as we go through how we captured that space, how we're sort of looking things around there as well. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is you have your space, you have an existing space. How do you bring that into SketchUp? And there are multiple ways we can do this. Now, a popular way of doing this is creating your SketchUp model from a 2D file. A lot of people have a DWG or DXF as a plan, and you can bring that in SketchUp and, whether using an extension or just simply using the DWG file, you can actually use that within SketchUp and bring that sort of space quickly into a 3D model. Now, some of the DWGs, they need a little bit of cleaning up, and these are the extensions that you can sort of help with that to help close gaps, to help clean up that geometry and go from there. So, probably the most popular way of doing it, but I'm hoping, and we are moving sort of further into sort of more technical ways and easier ways of doing it. Now, using Scan Essentials, working with point clouds. Now, this is in the loft apartment here, and we're using an iPad to actually scan the space. Now, an iPad and an iPhone, they have a built-in LiDAR, which means light detection and ranging. Basically, it measures like color and distance and can report it in a point cloud. So a point cloud is a set of data points in space, which will be generated after this 3D laser scanning process. And it means that you get that 3D space into SketchUp in Scan Essentials, and you can actually use that point cloud as your model. So, we've scanned the space, and we'll see how this scan actually looks. But what's quite important about this one, and what we also look at as well, it's one of those things that we've all done it. When you go to something, you measure everything, and then realize you forgot to measure something. Having a 3D point cloud means you can actually go and measure those points. Now, a couple of questions have come in around, is it only iPhone? Is it only the iPad? The reason for this is because they include LiDAR. Some other models of phones and tablets do contain LiDAR, but not all of them. You can use a free, or you can pay for an app. We're using Scaniverse here, which scans the point cloud. But if you have a LiDAR on your phone or tablet, you can do it. Or you can actually get other scanners, more industrial scanners as well, and we'll look at that as well. Now, what I will say is that scanning with an iPad, there is a sort of a bit of a limit around the accuracy. I say a bit of a limit. You can scan up to, I think, 10 meters, and there is it can be like a 5 centimeter sort of change there. But it's using that and can be absolutely fine for an interior space here. If you want to go sort of more with accuracy or larger spaces, there are options with other scanners as well. So, Trimble also develop hardware scanners, and, these can be drones to gather quite a large space. They can be sort of fixed scanners on a stand that can scan points, or we can actually have mobile scanners as well, which uses Boston Dynamics robot dog, which is known as Spot. And if we look at this next slide here, Spot can actually walk around an entire floor and scan that entire space. So this one here was for a large office refurbishment project in Tokyo, and using Spot, they were able to scan the entire office floor and use the point cloud to develop the model in SketchUp, and then the space was used to plan the new office and furniture layout. So we can see that in this animation here, Spot goes around, scans that entire space, and we come with this large 3D point cloud that can be used in SketchUp. So this means, this one you get the raw point cloud data. This isn't using an app like Scaniverse. This sort of goes through. Okay. So when you get your point cloud, this is kind of how it looks inside SketchUp. And you can pretty much see and work around, whether it's sort of enlarging those points, and you can see how the point cloud looks in SketchUp. And this is a 3D space. And like I said, I'll show you this in SketchUp live after the slides, but you actually get this 3D space. So this Scan Essentials. So this was scanned on an iPad using the app Scaniverse in this instance, and then opened in Scan Essentials, within SketchUp. And once you've got that point cloud in here, you can use it to measure. So, any point cloud format, we use the standard point cloud formats like PLY, E57, RWPs. Not going to go too technical. But then you can bring those points in, and you can actually use those points within SketchUp. So this sort of animation here just shows using those points to measure, which is, like I was saying, it's this one. It's a very complicated shape of room, this loft apartment. There's a lot of angles. So this is great with the point cloud to be able to use those as measuring. You can also use the points for modeling. So you can pick up on these points to just model quicker. And so you can bring them in and, use these for your modeling. Now, there's a number of tools that we have within the Scan Essentials tool as well. So you can actually, you can adjust how the point cloud looks, how the color of it, choose if the points can be selected or turn that off as well. There's also tools that you can use to check the accuracy of your point cloud compared to your SketchUp model. So in here, you can specify the distance that you want to see, like how it differs from the point cloud. And, it will show in green or red if something does sort of differ from there as well. So, these are different ways of scanning in the room. And also, I'm going to look at another way for the iPad later. We're going to sort of look a little bit more focused on the iPad. So now we have our space. So we have our room or building, depending on sort of what we're doing. How do we fill it using SketchUp? Now, multiple ways. Obviously, we can model things. We can create those models in a kitchen. We can bring in sort of saved components that we've set up there as well. But hopefully, this is one that that shouldn't be too sort of new to people. But we see people that don't use it. Is the 3D warehouse. Now, the 3D warehouse is the world's largest repository of 3D CAD models. And these are libraries of real-world models actually created from companies. So there are companies in here that put their furniture in here, their windows in here, so like Velux and people like that. And there's also user-generated models within here as well. And it means that you can search for what you're looking for and then populate your space. So, if there's options there that we want to bring in. Now, also what we're doing, and hopefully, again, some people have seen this, within the search for the 3D warehouse, we have an AI search. So you can actually just drag in a photo and say, I like this chair. And it will bring up models that look like that chair that you've selected. And again, I'll show this working a little bit later. We're also taking this further as well. So some of the objects in the 3D warehouse are dynamic components and live components. Now, these are types of components that can be configured. So some of them they have sets of rules. So if you say, like a fence is a good example on this one. If you drag a fence to a certain size, it will say, well, you need this many posts, and it will fit in there as well. Live components take it even further, that there's actually components within the 3D warehouse that you can say, well, they are set with colors and sizes. So I know there's a table on there that you can say, well, I'd like this table to have so many seats, to be this type of wood. So, there's a number of components in there, and there are filter options within the 3D warehouse to say, show me live components, show me components of this particular size. Now, also, and there's, again, we're sort of continuing to work really hard on the 3D warehouse. So you can locate furniture in augmented reality. So when you find within the 3D warehouse something you like, you can choose the option to say show in AR, and it produces a QR code that you can then use on, and these can be iOS or Android devices, and you can place that object in a real world setting, sort of with augmented reality on your phone. And, when you're bringing sort of your models in, so we're planning our space, organizing models with tags, just generally modeling efficiently in SketchUp can make life so much easier. Using groups and components is always a key part anyway. And then, by grouping these, you can then organize them in tags and tag folders, and it makes it simple to show alternative options. So in this animation here, we're using tags and tags folders to say, well, okay, there's a couple of options for some furniture. Here's options for kitchens. Do you like kitchen A? Do you like kitchen B? We can actually show those alternative options to customers within our design. And also, with our space planning as well, dimensioning in SketchUp. Dimensioning in SketchUp is extremely accurate, and it's also really powerful. So when you dimension lengths, angles, and areas, if something changes, these dimensions get updated. So in this particular animation, we've sort of measured an area, and then as you change that area, it actually produces sort of live responses showing updates to that area. So it really helps with that as well. So, we've got all of our space planning there. We've now filled everything in. Okay. So we now have our space filled with our objects. So we want to look at some of the tools that will really help communicate and sell, your design. Now, SketchUp has always been a tool that, the models are sort of nice and easy. They're very easy to look at. But, we introduced sort of some new tools as we sort of went along. So in SketchUp 2024, we introduced sort of some new graphic options, and it just sort of gave us that option to just enhance those models. So this one shows the change to ambient occlusion. Now, ambient occlusion, it's this shadow and detailing around sort of those areas, and it just gives a bit more depth to sort of our models as well. Then in SketchUp 2025, we introduced PBR materials. So these are physically based rendered materials. And these were introduced along with image-based lighting, so environmental lighting as well. So this is how something looked in SketchUp 2024. And then in SketchUp 2025, introducing those PBR materials, it just gives that model an entirely different look. If I just go back to how SketchUp 2024 used to look, look at the materials, look around the edges, and just you start to see, a bit more light interaction, and some of those sort of environmental reflections coming in as well. So it takes SketchUp to that next level as well, and sort of able to present that. And these display in sort of SketchUp and also on the iPad as well. So you can certainly share that with people as we go. Okay, so there's sort of an example again, sort of between those the models showing the different lights. And just a small bit of information regarding those PBR materials, because it is worth understanding them. So, these physically based materials, they describe a surface's appearance, how it interacts with light in an accurate way, leading to sort of these more realistic models. And, showing sort of the examples here, but this graphic here, this one really shows in sort of so simply of how it used to look in SketchUp, completely flat. And then with the PBR materials, it has these maps, these surfaces that, how these look. And PBR materials, they have a number of settings and maps because we have things like metalness. So, that's the top option there of how sort of shiny it looks, how reflective it looks. Roughness, so how rough the surface is. So, is it a nice clean reflection or like a diffused reflection? A normal map, this chooses how, there are sort of creases or bumps in the surface. And then ambient occlusion, how sort of shadow hits certain areas as well. Not going into too many sort of technical details in this example here, but it's just good to understand how those look within SketchUp. And then with environments as well. So alongside the image-based lighting, alongside the PBR materials, we have this image-based lighting. We have environments in SketchUp. So you can actually give a 3D environment around sort of your model there. And, this will display as we look there. And this is built in with SketchUp. So, you'll see within the menus down the right-hand side there, there's an environments tab, and you can turn that on and you can choose if you use your environment as a background and, see that there, control the light position, and that will set those reflections there. One thing I would say, using it for interior design, it doesn't generate shadows. So if you put it outside, it doesn't choose the light through the windows. That's still using sort of the SketchUp sun settings in there, but it gives that feeling of light as we go through. And then we have SketchUp Diffusion as well. So SketchUp Diffusion is an AI rendering tool. It's currently included in SketchUp. It's still in public beta at the moment. And because, we're sort of learning how people are using diffusion as we go, because diffusion is really for designers. They're looking to generate ideas at the start of the creative process. This is not a replacement for a renderer, because what it does is it takes the SketchUp viewport and looks at it, and you can give a description and choose how you want it to look. So in here, if we say, I want an interior photorealistic, high resolution, like a photo, soft lighting, it will create this sort of AI render. And it looks very, very similar to your model, but it's not quite sort of exact. You can't also sort of change different views there. This is, generated within sort of diffusion there. So it's a great way of actually saying, well, this is, is this the sort of style? Is this the sort of feeling you would like? And we can sort of work on that. And, it's it's a very quick tool, sort of being able to create that. But again, we're also looking at how we can take diffusion further. So, create sort of a diffusion render there, and you can actually apply it as materials to your surfaces. And, in this instance, if we look at this animation, yes, you can sort of zoom in, spin round, and it's kind of created it on the surfaces you can see there. Okay, so we've now sort of created our model, populated our model, visualized our model, but what can we do even further? How can we take this even further? Now, we can generate renders. So V-Ray is included in SketchUp Studio. And V-Ray is an exceptionally powerful render engine. I, you know, V-Ray is awesome. People do get a little bit sort of almost scared of it because it can appear complicated at the start, but really it's worth spending that time. And actually, when you get to understand it, it's not as complicated, and they give you a lot of tools that make it easy to sort of work through. And I'm going to sort of have a quick look at V-Ray as we sort of get sort of towards the end. But being able to create these renders, of course, it's showing people's designs photoreal, and then they get the true buy-in of saying, okay, this is amazing. 2D documentation, this is still a big thing within sort of ultimately within all our sort of lives in whether it's interior design or construction, there are still 2D drawings, and SketchUp has layout. And we can create the layout drawings. So when it comes to sort of things like office planning, where walls are going to be, they need the dimension, they need those layouts. But also what you can do with layout as well doesn't just have to be 2D plans. Layout here has been shown to create a complete plan. So this is a design concept. So in the store design that we were looking at earlier, we can show the design concept, the marketing materials, the display stands, and actually use SketchUp to create that stock capacity report. So the reporting was done in SketchUp, and it's using components which contain cost data fields and then the report generator to sort of create that as well. So then, collaborating also within your SketchUp license, we have Trimble Connect. Trimble Connect means you can collaborate, you can create tasks, you can message team members, you can create to-dos. So in this one here, we can say this wasn't the door handle I required, change to a link that we give here, assign it to somebody, choose how important it is, and then you can actually send that and they will receive an email. And you can look at sort of to-do lists, to say, okay, in this to-do list, we can see which ones are still outstanding. So it makes it much easier to manage these lists by collaborating in Trimble Connect. But, the great thing is with Trimble Connect is you can also, it helps collaborate on a model, because we can say that somebody is working on the kitchen, somebody's working on the layout there, and we can choose to update the kitchen from sort of 3D there as well. Okay, so let's have a look at the iPad. Now, I know we're going through a lot of information here and it's quite quick, but the idea is I want to show you as many ideas and concepts as I can, and then really it's look into it further, speak to your reseller and partners, and they can sort of help more with this. Now, SketchUp for iPad is a fantastic tool, and it's opened up a new ways of working in SketchUp. And if you use SketchUp, you can use SketchUp for iPad because you have those familiar tools. But it takes it a bit further because, using the Apple Pencil bring back the feel of sketching, but opens up other capabilities. And then using the camera, you can photograph something and say, use this as a material. Or you can scan the room using the LiDAR, as we mentioned, and create that model. So within the iPad, we have Scan to Design. Now, Scan to Design isn't the same as using the point cloud. Scan to Design, what this will do is use the iPad directly to scan a space, and it will create a 3D SketchUp model of that space. Now, I generally recommend using sort of Scan to Design for simpler spaces because when it comes to lots of angles and gaps and things, that's not really what Scan to Design is for. But if you have a simple space, it's a fantastic way of, creating an immediate starting point. It's, and you can then take that further. And this is, again, in this animation showing the sort of input there that you get from that. And Scan to Design is included in SketchUp for iPad. This isn't an extension or anything. This is actually included in iPad SketchUp for iPad, which is included in sort of your SketchUp license. It does require an iPad Pro. The reason for this is because the iPad Pro has that sort of fixed technology. We always get asked the question of, oh, does it work on other types of tablets? There's hundreds of other models of tablets, and we can't sort of make it work on all, so we only have SketchUp for iPad on the SketchUp Pro. Also in SketchUp for iPad, so we have Auto Shape. Now, Auto Shape means you can create sort of a sketch there, and it uses particular shapes and keys, and then knows to turn it into a 3D model. And these can be windows, these can be, simple shapes. So, in this example here, it places that window in there and actually builds that geometry for you within that Auto Shape. So it's an amazing tool, sort of there. Okay. Also, materials I mentioned about, you can take a photo of a material within the iPad using the camera straight away and actually use this straight away in your model. So in this instance, taking a photo of this marble, you click on plus, add material, use the camera, and now we have a marble material that you can paint. These are just a few of the things that SketchUp users get with that benefit of the iPad. And also object lift. So if people are sort of within iPads, you've got object lift within sort of your images there, and you can actually use these in SketchUp as well. So open up your sort of a gallery alongside SketchUp, and you can use object lift and bring those in as 2D sort of images there. Augmented reality. So also within the iPad, you can actually walk around your model. So this is sort of a pop-up coffee shop example here, and you can walk around your model using the iPad. Now, this always blows people's minds. You can walk inside of your coffee shop. You can walk behind the counter. So it really gives people, you imagine giving that to somebody on interior design and walking around their interior and showing them how it's going to look, how the models are going to look in their existing space. So yeah, it's a fantastic addition there. And you know, with the version, I saw the question come in around the versions of iPad Pro. So it's the one with the M processors. So from sort of the M1 processors, which what's that, about 2 years, 3 years? I don't know. So yeah, it's with the M processors. Okay, I went through a lot in slides there. I want to get into SketchUp because I want to show some of those things and some of the questions that came up as quickly as I can. So the first thing I want to do, let's have a look at our 3D point cloud. So this is how a 3D point cloud comes into SketchUp. We can see that full sort of 3D space there, and how the points look. And you know, in this instance, we've got it sort of fairly semi-transparent and bringing the points across there. But I'm going to use scenes, and you can have scene controls as well within SketchUp here. And you know, we can see that point cloud as it comes in, sort of cutting through there. So, you know, we have our model there as we go through. Now, these points, so this is the toolbar is up here. This is the toolbar for Scan Essentials. And you can control the visibility of it. You can control, if you select those points, how you measure the points, create surfaces from like floor surfaces from points. There's a number of tools, and we're not going into that one in detail. But at the moment, I've got it so I can select points here. So I can pick a point cloud point. And we saw that, you know, with our measuring tool, I can pick up those points and we can actually measure, you know, our wall there, and we can sort of really see how things look. So, you know, within that point cloud, it is such an easy way of grabbing that 3D space and then sort of being able to measure there as well. And sort of going through, I've got our, you know, our whole model here. So it's not just from Scan Essentials. We've used Scan Essentials to then model our space in here as well. So if we have a look at our floor plan, you know, with our sort of interior models as we go through here. So we've fitted out our space as we go through, and we've put in, you know, some of the models from the 3D warehouse that we can sort of look at as well. And this is using those new PBR materials. So we can actually see that's, you know, this is not a render. This is actually looking at it live as we go through. So we can really set those up. Now, also, what I'm going to do, let's have a look at the kitchens here as well. So I mentioned about using our tags, and our tags in here. So we have in our interior, we have a couple of different kitchens, and we can actually sort of have a look. So, you know, do we want to see sort of kitchen 1 or kitchen 2 as well? So you can show very quickly the idea of saying, well, which option do you prefer for your kitchen? Sort of, you know, our minimalist shelving or a little bit more storage space. And this is what we were talking earlier. So yeah. Okay. Now, what we can also look at, I'm just trying to think, looking at time, just making sure we have time to go through as much as we can. You know, within our space as well, and which space do I want? I want the, there we go. So I want to show I mentioned about like our 3D warehouse. So within loading up our 3D warehouse, we have 3D warehouse here. And I'm going to show that AI functionality that we looked at. And I've got an image here of a particular chair. So, you know, quite a sort of a famous interior designs Wishbones chair. It's a photo there. I can drop the image in there, and it will actually, there's my photo, and now it's looking through the 3D warehouse to show me the images that look like that chair. Now, I did see a comment come in regarding that some of the models are, you know, quite heavy sometimes. You can bring in your filters. So you can say, I want to show a particular poly count or particular file size. So only show me file sizes that are, you know, I can choose one of my set limits here, or I can actually scroll down and choose that. Or this one's not too bad. yeah, it's an 8 megabyte, but you know, it's quite a detailed model. There's that view in AR button that I said about earlier. So if we did want to, you know, look at that using our phone or tablet, but I'm going to download that and put that straight into my model here. And there we go. So we can put that on the end of our table. So we have that from the 3D model there as well. So that's, you know, going through a lot of information there. And we also have within this particular model, and if I have a look, so, you know, we can really set it up. So now we've got sort of that PBR and environment on as well. So, you know, we can choose those sort of different sunset lighting positions and start to see how that really, you know, sort of affects our look with that PBR material. And as we sort of look around there, just giving that sort of much more realistic feel to our model. Okay. And what I want to do, I'm going to flick over to another model very quickly. Now, this is a slightly different looking model. This one's been set up using V-Ray. And one of the reasons it looks a little different is that we have a number of these white objects. Now, these are called proxy objects. What happens within V-Ray is you can create proxy objects. You can load these in from the V-Ray toolbars. And these proxy objects, they're simple in SketchUp, but when you render them in V-Ray, they look a lot more detailed. So I'm going to start my V-Ray interactive renderer here. Now this is much easier to work with if you have two screens, but I'm only showing one screen here. And I can see how this room is set up to render within V-Ray. So it's just doing some processing and now we have the render of the room. And just to point out a couple of those things, like that very simple looking tree there, that's now sort of much more detailed tree within V-Ray. And also the vases on the table and sort of our lighting and rendering there. And with the interactive renderer, so if I say I want the view from my Eames chair in the corner there, let's see how this room looks. So it will process the different view there as we go. And if I change materials, so if I select my wall here, which is sort of a slightly sort of magnolia color, we can make it a little bit more exciting. And I've selected my material there. If I just move that down so we can see the color wheel, if I just change that material, straight away that updates in the renderer. And, you know, we can then get different feel for the room completely. So, you know, do we want the sort of the warm color there, or actually let's go for kind of a light blue, so make it a bit of a cooler feeling feature wall. And, you know, we can really get that information there. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show, because I want to make sure we've got a few minutes of questions here. If we have a look at sort of our, you know, some of the tools within V-Ray. So I'm opening up here the Chaos Cosmos browser, so we can actually look at different 3D models. So these are already preset models here. So, you know, we can actually look at sort of furniture and you know, some of those options that we have in there. So, you know, if I look at my vegetation section, I can bring in sort of different plants or creepers here. Or actually within, if I say potted plants, we can bring these into the room. So if I show, I'm going to choose this particular rose sort of vase here, and I'm going to bring that into my model. We can see in SketchUp, it's quite a simple looking white model, but what we'll see in V-Ray when that comes in is my detailed rose vase there as well. So I can close that down, just zoom into that. And we will finish on that one there. Okay, so, you know, quite a sort of, I guess, a simple render, but hopefully showing that, you know, there's a lot there that we can do in interior design. And I've been through an awful lot. So let's look at some of the questions. And, please keep the questions coming in while I've got sort of a few minutes here to answer. So I had a question here. How do you get a Revit model into SketchUp? So if you have sort of the correct version of SketchUp, so in SketchUp Pro, you can't do this, but in SketchUp Advanced Pro, or Pro Advanced, sorry, there is a Revit importer, and within Advanced Pro or Studio, and if I just close down my Revit import there, I can choose import. And one of the options I have is actually import a Revit file. It imports the Revit files and it will create sort of all the layers from Revit will be created as tags in SketchUp. So the Revit importer is sort of really sort of fantastic in there as well. Okay. Within the 3D warehouse, are there options for antiques? There are millions of models in the 3D warehouse. So I, really, the more specific you search, the more options that will get displayed within the 3D warehouse. So if I just look for antique, let's try and spell that correctly instead of rushing on this one. So I've got 6,000 models, and I've got antique furniture, I've got antique houses, phone. So yes, there's many models in there as well. Can we import OBJ files? So yeah, OBJ files are absolutely fine. Within SketchUp, we want to make sure that we make it as compatible with other software as possible. So we can see there's a huge number of sort of different files that we can bring in within SketchUp. Okay. Yeah, just to confirm, the recording will be sent to you afterwards as well. Okay. So just going through. So a question regarding upgrading. So if you have SketchUp Pro and you would like some of the features that perhaps I've shown, like Scan Essentials or V-Ray, if you talk to your reseller, they will be able to talk through the upgrade options. The great thing is that if you're 6 months through your 12-month subscription, what you will be able to do is just upgrade for that remaining 6 months, and you will only pay the additional charge for the additional sort of option there. And so you haven't got to buy like SketchUp Studio for the whole 12 months. It will just upgrade for the remainder of your subscription. But best thing to do is talk to your partners on that one. Okay. So can you do exactly the same things with SketchUp iPad as with classic SketchUp? Yes. Like I said, when you initially go into the iPad, it's a little bit different working, but you can do everything in SketchUp for iPad and more that you saw, with some of those sort of tools there as well. So just scanning through, there's a lot of questions. So the iPad for the phone, that was Scaniverse that we used to scan on the iPhone. Also, people have asked about the version. The LiDAR scanner has been available for quite a long time on the iPads and iPhones. I think it might have came in the iPad or the iPhone 12. So it's definitely been sort of around there a long time. Is PBR an add-on or plugin or built into SketchUp? It's built into SketchUp. It's that's there within SketchUp as well. I've noticed a number of questions that are actually technical sort of support questions. I can't go into some of those now. What I'd recommend, have a look. If you search on our website for SketchUp support, you'll see the options there. But also, contact your reseller initially for that, and they'll certainly be able to help you as well. Okay, I'm just going through. Is there a fillet or round corners in SketchUp? In 3D, absolutely, because you've got your sort of chamfer tool and arc tool that you can model from anything there. If you're talking about layout, there's some exciting sort of new things coming. So we'll be able to help that as well. How do you add ambient occlusion to your toolbar? The tool is not in the toolbar at the moment, but it's actually within sort of your scenes. So, sort of setting up the scenes there as well. Okay. I've come up to time. So what I want to do is give a massive thank you for everyone that's attended. We've had many people here. A huge thank you. And I hope it's been useful. That, it's really, I just want to show sort of even a hint of some of the power of SketchUp. Ask questions, have a look on YouTube, work with resellers. So, they're all there to help. But, a thank you so much to everyone that's attended. So, I really do hope it has been useful. So, yeah, thank you so much.